This is called Psyche, which is a landscape in a tray. Now, it's an ideal way to put trees together when they're in training and you've got something reasonable to look at. There's 5 trees in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they are all nursery, or were all nursery stock in May. Raw nursery stock. And the idea was to show some of the newer growers and the fact that you can put something together fairly quickly and have something presentable. This tree here could probably go straight into a mini pot. This one here is probably the best tree of the lot. But I bought, oh sorry, that one's a cutting, a rooted cutting, 12 months old. I bought 6 trees from Oriental Bonsai, which was just saying. This one was about that one. Don't worry about little pots for minis. And I'll show you some more reasons, but that one there is one I just cut down. That's where the main trunk went up there, straight up. And I think it'll make a respectable little tree, but it probably won't remain in my collection. It'll probably go into a pot with a lot of training and bushing up, and it'll be sold at our show probably. By the way, there's only, well, except for these 2 little rocks in there, there's 1 rock there. That's all 1 rock, and there's 2 there. So, and they're all volcanic rocks, so they're fairly light. But I can't lift the heavy stuff anymore. But they're volcanic stuff. It's like scoria. But it doesn't get too hot at all. In fact, it holds the moisture very well. Now, what's a mini bonsai? And I decided I'd read it out of here because it's a very contentious issue. Show-in bonsai are a minimum of 4 inches and a maximum of 10. So that is a mini bonsai, show-in bonsai that is in training, as you can see, and I started it, this will be its 2nd year. This next spring will be its 3rd year. It's a gruya. Does everybody know what a gruya is?
Yellow flowers.
No, it has lavender flowers. The only problem is, if you have a look, you'll see the buds come right on the end of the new growth. So you can't keep it in shape and have it flowering unless you let it grow out of shape a bit. This one here is I'm allowing to grow because I want it to thicken up the 2nd trunk. I've got a particular passion for twin trunk trees, or 3 trunk trees, multiple trunks anyway. So that is actually 1 tree. It looks like 2, but it's 1 tree. This one here is a bit hard to work out, trying to decide what that is, but it's an olive. Incidentally, this was nursery stock, that was a cutting. Just take a couple of dead leaves off there.
And that would be a broom style? Would that be a broom style?
When you're growing minis, you know, there's no particular style, but, you know, informal, upright, broom style, whatever you like. Broom style is the hardest of all the styles to do to look really good, without doubt. The Marmay style is Marmay size, they say, is 4 inches maximum with a minimum of 3. It doesn't give you much, but the measurement is from the soil. So that almost fits into Marmay. Mini, sorry, that's mini. Well, mini could also be in a pot that size. And if you want to go further,
oh no,
and it goes into that pot, it would be classed as bloody tiny. The only thing I've ever grown in that, and I've had it on display, is moss. Just a bit of lichen or something like that. I have had trees in pots that size, but they were virtually just seedlings. Incidentally, that was a cutting. It's supposed to be a Kingsville box. It's about 4 years old. And often with my small trees, after the shows are over, I'll take them out of the little tiny pots and put them into something like that for the rest of the growing season. Then next year when they show, I'll put them back into a little pot. I drill a few holes about half an inch up from the bottom, just around the side, put gravel in it, and I just sit the trees on it. And the humidity coming up during the day is enough to keep them damp. That was particularly so when I was still working, but now that I'm retired, I can water them 2 or 3 times a day if I need to. Okay. I use all forms of propagation to get my trees. I buy old trees at shows and things that I think I can do something with. People give me trees, unfortunately. I don't grow a lot from cutting. I do grow some, but if I grow cuttings, I don't put little tiny cuttings in. I've grown trident maples from cuttings that big. They grow very easily. Junipers, which without doubt are the easiest tree to do anything with, along with Chinese elms. They're ideal beginners trees. And for me, I love junipers, but if I do a cutting that, it might be as thick as my thumb, but what I do is when I cut it off, the tree, I wire it straight away. And when you wire them straight away, you can often get something that looks like that on the base of it. And you see some of the trees, Graham Rose sells a lot of them too, but see trees that are really twisted and then in the bottom of them, and then they have some dead wood and they're still only about this high, but they're quite thick. That's how they do it. They put heavy wire on them, put them in, squash them down, and just plant them in the ground. And after a few years they dig them up, and with a bit of luck, the wire's cut in, because what they want is the bare wood shari all the way up. But that's how that curve was in the bottom of that tree. This is not a particular, I'm not particularly fond of this juniper, and it's the only one I grew, thank God. That's a pyracantha. You can see it's fairly thick. It was wide out, it's the orange berry one by the way. It was wide out of the top of a tree in the garden. I put the layer on last cup day, and I cut it off in March. So it was only on there about 4 months. And 4 months, the reason I cut it off because the roots were growing out through the plastic. It had that many roots on it. So I put it in here, and it'll stay in here till next season, and then I'll start to shape it. But as you can see, it's got a pretty interesting style to it already and quite a good taper. The other thing that you get more with the aerial layers than anything else is the big flared base on them. That'll have a magnificent base on it, that tree, I can guarantee it. I was going to bring a few others down to show you ones that I'd aerial layered, Japanese maples and things, and like the trunk might be that wide, the tree might be only that high, the trunk about that wide at the base, but the Nabari, the root system is about that wide. Sometimes that's not an advantage, because you've got to have a bigger pot to put them in.